Yeah, why is God
Why not
always
use
dependent on
strangers
human
then?
beings, right, to do his work?
Human beings, some would say that's the Lord using you. My aunt would tell me that. That's just God using you. I'm happy to let her believe that. And if it's true, if there is a God and the God is using me, all the better. So if I get to heaven and I find, oh crap, it's judgment day, instead of asking for a snowball to run the test in hell to see if it really melts fast, I can ask for mercy. Like, look, remember all that good stuff you used me to do? You recall using me for any bad stuff? And I didn't do much bad stuff on my own as an adult, right? I was a bit of a screw up at times as a kid, but as an adult, no.
But your just the slightest tinge of bad thoughts is just horrible to God. Like you're
Okay.
making you sound like a Muslim right now.
I don't know that much about Islam, but in the Old Testament, Jesus is credited with saying, "Oh, don't even think about sinning because it's as if you had sinned." That's actually a commandment from the Old Testament that he's just rehashing, because when the writers sat down to write about Jesus, they just came up with a laundry list of quotes and sayings and things from the Old Testament to repeat when they were writing the New Testament. But since it's new, it's better, as you would tell us. It's better because it's new.
Yes.
But yeah, okay, so I do sound like this group. I watched a video where you had Kwaku, a Muslim guy, and two other guys all talking about their religions. You did another one where people were talking about recovery. The guy became a Muslim, another guy became a Christian. Those kind of comparisons are gold because people need to see, there's a universality here. And that universality is, I have decided to change my life for the better. And that's really, no matter what you believe, audience, that's really, no matter how good your life is, that's really awesome when you do that, because you're going to inspire other people, you're going to help other people, and you're going to grow. And what else are you here for?
You sound like you need to start your own YouTube channel, or have you already?
I need to get around to it. Oh, okay, there it goes. Take two. I got a question from a comment from one of the videos I saw some years ago. I got a question from a video. I made a response to one of Mike Winger's videos that he did on Apollonius of Tyana. Now, this happens to be one of my favorite stories. And I'm going to be doing a video about Mike Winger's video, because that's what you do on YouTube, because I disagree. Mike was making the point of how different the stories of Jesus and the stories of Apollonius are. It's not fair to ask Mike to remember in exhaustive detail all the things that occurred in both the Bible and in the life of Apollonius of Tyana by Flavius Philostratus. So I figure, let me just give some points and do a bit of a side-by-side to make it more clear why there are really parallels that shouldn't be ignored. Somebody sent me a text. Chewbacca's my notification. So this person, this person one step away asks, so why do you ask me godly questions? I don't believe I did. For anything supernatural to occur, God is needed. Jesus rising from the grave can only happen if God exists. If you don't believe in God, then the gospel is foolish. I get why people believe. I believed at one time. It's understandable how one could yearn for heaven. It is, in part, a very attractive idea to go on forever. If I were to go to heaven and Yo soy muy popular. If I were to go to heaven and my Aunt Louise was there, I just can't imagine not spending the first year just hugging her. Because I miss the way she sounds, the warmth in her voice, her sweetness, and the way she would say my name. Oh, it just felt so wonderful. And my grandmother and my great-grandmother and the grandmothers that I never met, to great-grandmothers I never met, you know, that sort of thing. I would love to be in that number.
That's crazy.
So if you see me look over here, I'm looking at my notes. If you see me look over there, I'm looking at my other notes, which have both been printed too small. So this will be done in takes. First thing I want to do is give you a bit of history. Where did I come from? What is my origin story, in effect? I was one of those kids who was curious, always wanting to know how things work. I'm 48 now. That has not waned. I'm very interested when I get something. What is its nature? How does it work? How can I enhance it if that's possible? What's going to break on it? Like the mini or micro HDMI cable on this camera. It's the first thing to break. It's got to be. And then the USB thing. It's got to be the next thing to break. Anyway, that's beside the point. So very early on, I was asking questions about things that people read to me in the Bible before I read them myself. Remarkably, a lot of people didn't like those questions. I remember asking one of my Sunday school teachers and getting busted for this, saying, so what about aliens on other planets? Could it be that they have a different Bible? And he said, what's this you're talking about these aliens? He sounded like that. There are no aliens. And I'm like, how could there not be aliens? It's such a giant universe. And I'm like 7 asking these questions. I said, what about the dinosaurs? Did they go on Noah's Ark? There were no dinosaurs on Noah's Ark. Look, as a young kid, I didn't catch the detail that Noah was over 500 years old when he started building that ark. Right over my head. I had no idea the things that later in life, when I could read and had great reading comprehension, that I would look at and say, that's reaching, that is far-fetched, that is probably not the case, is it? Didn't really happen that way? Could it be a little different? Fast forward to being in middle school, there was an assignment where the name of God, the God from the Bible, came up. And I used lowercase. My teacher explained, oh, no. When it's the Christian God, you use uppercase. When it's any other God, like a Greek or Roman God, you use lowercase. And I said, that bothers me. That's not equal. That's not fair. And my teacher was impressed that I took a stand on this and agreed when it came up, I wouldn't get dinged for it. Because my teacher had the understanding that I had the understanding now, and I wasn't having it. It's the same. Everybody gets a capital letter or nobody does. To this day, I still do that. Unless it's the beginning of a sentence. Then it's the proper thing to do. Even at times, I'll put God in quotes because as an atheist, I don't have a belief that there is a God of any kind, anywhere. Even those dudes. And in documentaries and stuff, no, don't give them that. A religious background. My mother had won a hi-fi set. Now, if you're a millennial or younger, what I said doesn't make any sense. Like, what the hell is a hi-fi set? Okay, so hopefully I remember to put in a picture of a console stereo that had a radio that was like that wide inside of it, and great speakers for its time, and an 8-track. I remember my little brother and I found a box that had a bunch of 8-tracks. Like, somebody threw this out, and it had 70s Hit Explosion. A couple years ago, I went on eBay and I bought 70s Hit Explosion. I don't even have anything to play it on. I also sent a copy to my little brother who was so excited when he got it. And he didn't have anything to play it on either. But there were some real awesome hits on there. Maybe I should put a link in the description. I don't know. But anyway, if my mom had stuff to catch up on Sunday mornings, she might not go to church, even if she didn't have to work. But we would hear on the stereo, the hi-fi set, we would hear the Blind Boys of Alabama. You'd hear some Mahalia Jackson. You'd hear plenty of other groups that were singing gospel, these beautiful gospel songs. And I remember, like, I didn't really care for it. And my mom's favorite songs seemed to be Shirley Caesar's No Charge, which is an excellent song as far as its writing and her singing and the instrumentation. Probably should put a link in the description or wherever that goes. That I kind of remember fondly. But we would go across the street to our local Baptist church and learn a little bit about God and prayer and all that. So it was kind of fun at times when I could hang out with my friends. There was this one lady who I thought was the most beautiful woman in the world, excluding the other most beautiful woman in the world who I'll come to in a moment. But she wore these great big hats and she had a wonderful smile and she smelled amazing. And I think I remember her better than about anybody else in that church. Even the minister, who was the grandfather of one of my nephews. It was really an interesting time because I believed what I was being told. I had little to no challenges. My questions were about understanding it more, what the Bible said, and not saying this isn't real, you guys are making this up. There were other things where the seeds of doubt were laid pretty early on. Like, I thought, for instance, God is a very poor decision maker. I lived in low-income housing, and some of the things I saw and what I went through and friends went through, I'm like, who's watching over us? Whoever did this, these aren't really great character building exercises that make me feel looked after. Or maybe with what happened to a friend, it doesn't seem like they're being looked after either. But we were told we were in God's hands. And I'm sometimes thinking he was doing like this or something. That was my thinking at the time. Like, oh my gosh, this is not healthy. These are not what a reasonable person, some of these situations, what a reasonable person in charge would willingly put people through. Didn't seem right at the time. So at an early age, given the sense of the world that I had, my Weltanschauung, my worldview, I was already seeing where God wasn't doing a good enough job for me. I was already developing my own moral standards. I could have the Bible to look at. I had Dr. Seuss, which reached me better because I was a child at the time. right now, there's a lot of people saying this and that about Dr. Seuss's books are racist. I didn't know any of that when I was a kid. It didn't seem like anything I could pick up. But now I think I could probably see it better, but I don't even know what people are griping about it. Forming my own worldview, it seemed to me that I could learn from my own environment as a child. So when I hear apologists say that, oh, you're borrowing from the Christian worldview, blah, 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 that sort of thing, I feel that is one of the most dishonest things they can say. I'll go as far as to saying that's a lie. That is a lie. There are rules and laws that are older than the Hebrew Bible, which means they're older than the New Testament as well. And mankind hasn't been so savage as not to love at all. You might have had a few people that were just awful, but most people weren't so awful. And most people know better than to steal and to cheat and to be violent and to murder, things of that nature. We did make some progress. Our ancestors made great progress without these things ruling the day. And if we read the Bible, I see God breaking a lot of his own commandments in there. And there will be those people who say, well, it's because it is the decree of God. That's what makes it just. Earlier I referenced Mike Winger. That's one of the things that I have a problem with what he says. I mean, he seems like a really great guy, but when he says something like, and I should find a clip from PineCreek, where if God decides to flood the world and kill all but 8 people, because it was God doing it, that's a moral decision. That's monstrous. And to agree with it, though not as monstrous, is horrifying. Where's the line? Where do you draw the line if that is your worldview? I have long been fascinated by people of other religions. What do they believe? Why do they believe it? And no religion has ever been more fascinating than the people who believed it. I've sat and meditated with Buddhist people. I've been to like a Korean religion to study the Dojang, where Sanjay Nim was God. And Sanjay Nim was like a real person that's a historical figure who walked the earth. They knew what he looked like. They knew where he was from for sure. They knew when he was born. Fantastic. Other just, Judaism, Catholicism, all this has fascinated me over time. The only one more than Buddhism has been Christianity. Christianity is the one I ultimately chose for myself and the one I ultimately walked away from. And I don't think they can win me back. There were periods of time where I grew in faith. I moved from Indiana to California, and it had been 3 years once I arrived in California without going to church. And I met someone at a gas station. He's a Christian guy. And he says, hey, where do you go to church? And I said, I don't go to church. He says, well, I go to a great church. I'd love to give you an invite. Me and him and his family, we became pretty close. They were wonderful people. They had a great church group. I'm reminded of what Susan Scheller said in her song Absinthe and Tangerine. It was beautiful for a while. No explanation required, I guess. But I did grow more and more in my faith, but I started to look around at the behavior of the peoples, which you will be told not to do. You have to focus on what Jesus is saying, what Paul is saying, what God is saying, and not get your ideas from other sinners. That's a rough one. Things in the Bible will tell you if you have someone who is unrighteous, you need to kick them out of the congregation, that sort of thing, because they want the congregation to stay cohesive. I can understand that. There are those who will say, well, that's cult-like behavior. Look, if you're running a corporation, you might agree you don't want somebody who's constantly talking garbage about your corporation or trying to ruin what your company's goals are. You don't want that. It's okay. I get it. I got away from that church. That sounded bad, but I'll leave it in. I stopped going. I still believed after I stopped going. And one day, a friend of mine introduced me to another church. This was a non-denominational church, which I thought, oh, this is better for me. Because there's less finger pointing, and there was. It was wonderful. Even the choir was better. But I didn't just go for the choir. But for a time, it was enough. For a time, I still believed in God until one day, my friend who referred me to that church and I were hanging out, and she said that she had set a goal to read the Bible cover to cover in 1 year. I thought this was admirable. I had seen some stuff in the Bible and read some of it too at that time. And it was fascinating to me that she, an agnostic who went to church, would even think of this. And I thought, well, it'll be interesting to see what she likes. I wonder will she like the same things that I like? And she mentioned that something was in the Bible, and I can't even remember specifically what it was, and she doesn't either. And I said, that's not in the Bible. She goes, oh, yes, it is. She got the paper Bible out. She showed me. She got a VHS tape out and showed me. She got a DVD out, DVD-ROM out, and showed me. And she even got a freaking cassette tape. Millennials, a cassette tape was like a CD. Or it's like an MP3, but it's made out of plastic. And this magnetic tape lives inside of it. And it sort of circulates as a real, whatever, you can Google it. There's probably a YouTube video of a cassette tape and how to use one. At any rate, I said to her in an apology, look, it looks like I don't know this as well as I thought. I'm going to read the Bible cover to cover too. When I sat down to do it, I was enthusiastic and I still believed in a God. I read Genesis, no problem. People created from dirt of the ground, or a man created from the dirt of the ground, no problem. The earth created in just 5 days, no problem. The rest of the universe created in a single day, not a problem at all. I'm still with you. A man having a rib removed and creating a whole woman out of it, you don't lose me yet. I'm still with you. Keep going. This is all good so far. I get to the Tower of Babel. And I said, now wait a second. This just can't be true. The way the story is told, the nature of the translation, and I said, I'm a pretty good writer. And I know a story, not the truth, is being told when I see it. This is a story. In fact, some of the other things I had been reading weren't facts. They were just a story. Later, I would learn the Noah's Ark story is taken from another culture, which took it from another culture. And that story is much older than we think. I found out that the Exodus itself didn't happen as described in the Bible. There's a translation, it's the Reed Sea, not the Red Sea. It doesn't look like a people group that large of millions of Hebrews and Jews left Egypt along with some of the Egyptians and other strangers that went along for the journey. The fact that they could walk and the line wouldn't end before they arrived in the Jerusalem area And the last of the people would still be in Egypt, leaving. It just seemed far-fetched. I could no longer accept that the Christian religion was true. There still might be a God though, but I'll tell you, Dr. Robert M. Price has a show called The Bible Geek. One of his listeners is Jorby. I have to use Jorby's world's greatest analogy that I know about. Jorby said when he stopped believing, it was just sort of oh. The description goes on to say, it was like being at a barbecue and your hot dog bun breaks. Life is going to be messier than you think, but you still can enjoy what you have. Yeah. That's how heavy it hit me. That means there's no hugging Aunt Louise for a year. I have some memories. I don't even have a photograph. But I'll adore her as long as I can on this earth. Same for my grandma, my great grandma. I have to be curious about the ones I'll never meet. And my dad's dad, I'll never meet him. He's long gone before I even came along. So, in some ways, it's tough. But I didn't really lose anything other than some expectations. The world is still the same. It goes on and on and on. Eventually I stopped going to the non-denominational church. While seated one day, I'm looking up, paying attention to what the minister is saying, and he quotes a book that I had been reading. And I sat back in my chair and I said, if he's quoting things that you are reading, you don't need to be here anymore. If you're curious, you can do your own learning. And so I went less and less, loved the people, still in contact with some of the people, but I don't go. There's still a lively congregation, still thriving, but that isn't the place for me to be on a Sunday morning. And it might not be the place for you to be on the Sunday morning either. That is a pretty decent segue. So as a newfound atheist, born again atheist, fine, I'll take it. As a born again atheist, I then started to want to know a little bit more. How do you be an atheist? How do you deal with people challenging your disbelief? Well, I didn't really know. So I would watch old school YouTube, Prof MTH, Skeptics Bible Study. I have a list over here. The Atheist Experience. I mentioned Dr. Price, the Bible Geek. I would listen to that. And there's numerous, I would even listen to sermons. What did I miss? Because I really felt that I got hoodwinked. The fact is, I put so little energy into understanding if what I was reading in the Bible was true, that I was just believing, sort of just believing. The level of commitment, though I would help people, I would do what I could for people, be kind to people. That's just my nature. That's my character. So I sort of was always there. Now, there are those who will go into the Bible and say, oh, but again, you're borrowing from the Christian worldview because it says God puts this sort of behavior on everyone's heart. The fact that you're doing it is just proof. Well, again, it's prior art, as an attorney would say. Other people have said this sort of thing, haven't they? Other people believe this sort of thing, don't they? Brahma trumps every god by saying all other people who have believed in another god inadvertently believed in me. What do you do with that? What's Yahweh got to say to that? nothing as usual in my view. I noticed the terrible state, my notes say, of apologetics and how ministers often get things wrong. Again, any of those people, like me, like you, probably wouldn't remember every word in the 1,300 plus page book. We are not going to remember everything that occurred in the stories told in this 1,300 plus page book, or maybe even a 1-page letter from a dear friend. We won't necessarily remember. So I think one of the things I want to do, excuse me, one of the things I want to do is go ahead and sort of show my audience, whoever they are, show my audience where this or that person went wrong. As I mentioned, the Winger video, there's all sorts of stuff that Mike probably didn't remember. I'm not going to say he intentionally left anything out. I don't know that that's the case. But it needs to be, I think, in order to be fair to a book that I really enjoyed, The Life of Apollonius of Tyana, I should show someone, look, here are the parallels. There are some. That's a strong case. Which one was written first? We don't actually have dates for when the Bible was written. We have estimates. Mike doesn't do a good job of telling you how the story that Flavio Philostratus put together came along. I plan on showing you in the text. Here's what's said in the text about that. And maybe the Jesus stories aren't as old as Flavius Philostratus' book. Maybe they aren't. Anyway, in addition to that, I saw how people were searching for answers. Christians asking people, I don't know what stripe of believer or non-believer that they may or may not have been, were also asking for clarification. And luckily, there are a lot of sincere people on YouTube that would respond. And then some things just didn't get a response. And I would start typing and say something, oh, it's just too long to explain this. YouTube really isn't the place for an explanation that should be 3 pages long to be presented. But I didn't make videos. So eventually I just run out of gas on some of those explanations. Some of the people, I remember this one in particular, he asked me, because he saw that I was an atheist, he asked me, well, what do you think I should do? Because he was on the fence. If you're wondering who my audience is, I think atheists who are just trying to gain a deeper understanding of the Bible, because maybe you came out of Christianity, or maybe you work in an environment with Christians and you want to understand them better when they're proselytizing you, if you just love hearing them talk, or if you want to actually challenge what they have to say, maybe you could be the one who's not just getting enlightened by what they say, but also enlightening them if there's a need for correction or your own interpretation, not necessarily anything I say. The Bible has a phrase, as iron sharpens iron, man sharpens man. Love it. Love it. The book of Proverbs has a lot of great wisdom. I was told this book is about management. I kind of think that's true. I think it does a very good job of advising us. There's some stuff in there though. But I want to sort of bring that out. I want to, if I've read some other book, like the story about the Exodus and all those plagues and stuff, if I could show you something, and I can, that looks like it's the source material for this story, maybe you change your mind if it really happened or not. The stories about Jesus, if I could show you something that looks like the source material for the Jesus story, maybe it's not so clear that it's historical. I think this thing just switched files. Who knows? Anyway, if I could show you something about how that Jesus story was built, maybe the case is not so strong for it. If I could show you the Sermon on the Mount, like, look, you know why this exists? Let me show you why this story exists. Maybe the foundation is not so strong. If you need Jesus to get you through the day, if you need Jesus so you don't go back to doing drugs, drinking too much, being violent, things of that nature, if you need Jesus for that, there's no shame in stopping the video right now and going to watch something else. Please do that, because your faith is making the world a better place, because there's less pain. And even if Christianity doesn't bring you immense joy, but as a result, you govern yourself better, you have higher expectations for yourself, that's wonderful. Keep up the good work. And you don't ever have to come back for this channel. I'm not going to have anything for you on here if that's your state of being. This channel, the thing that I most want for this channel, where I most want it to go, I want to help people who were in the situation that I was in. I was an atheist for years, and I couldn't tell some of the people who were closest to me. There are people I still haven't told that I am, because I think it would break their heart. And they don't use YouTube, so I don't think they're coming here for this. And I want to create resources for other people who are non-believers to introduce that reality to their family. That may mean I interview some of you. That may mean we do sort of a Google Hangout or conversation on the phone where we talk first and then we have a conversation with your loved one or loved ones. It is important that the loved ones are attended to as much as it is that the new atheist or old atheist is attended to. I had a chat with a friend of mine who is a therapist about this, wondering what are the things that need to be taken care of in a conversation like this. She well understood I'm concerned about the loved ones as much as I am the person who's my fellow atheist. And she said, you have to understand that people are going to grieve. And I said, they're mourning the loss of their expectations. She tried to add to that. Ultimately, it was decided, that's it in a nutshell. They're mourning the loss of their expectations. Everybody's not going to be like me and Jorby's hot dog, where it's just, oh. It's that simple. Some people are going to need more. I would love to be a resource person who helps find that more and helps give that more. Ultimately, resulting hopefully in a bunch of little videos to click on that can walk them through where their loved one who's an atheist or agnostic now is in their journey out of faith. The purpose of this channel isn't to be an atheist machine, although there's probably going to be somebody who makes an atheist machine channel now. If there isn't one now. It isn't to just make atheists. It's not a manual for creating atheists. This is more, hey, how do we adjust? And how do we help others adjust? There's also a little bit of fun with me going through scripture, showing you how different my interpretation is as a writer than some minister or fellow YouTuber talking about it. I don't want to jump up and down. No, at some point I'll probably jump up and down. I'm jumping up and down at some point, I'm telling you. I would like to be kind in my approach. There's probably times where I'll fall down and I'll be upset. And so I'll act like I'm upset. I do want to, I think this is in another page of notes. I do want to borrow, keyword, from the Christian worldview for a specific purpose. When you watch my videos and you hear me using biblical language. If I am in a conversation with someone who is a Christian in one of these videos, you're going to hear it. You're going to hear me say it when it's just me going over notes that I created for something I'm trying to teach or what have you. I'll go ahead and use it, as I have with the iron sharpens iron, man sharpens man. Why? The reason for that is it shows my familiarity with the material. They don't have to respect it. They don't have to like it, but they will know it's there. I want to give context. I want to give chapter and verse. And when it's, say, Apollonius of Tyana, I want to tell you where the page number or Amazon Kindle location number is for that information. So anybody who's trying to be like a Berean and actually check it out and not just be one of the 3,000 that converted that day because they liked what they heard, that's good. I want to give you information you can do something with. If you're in the military and you find, they're praying before these events, and maybe there's a separation to church and state and it makes me uncomfortable. I would love to be able to tell you, look, you can talk to that commanding officer, perhaps, or maybe you slip them a note. Hey, look, if you go into the Gospels and you read, and when thou prayest, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and in the corners of the streets, that they may be seen of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. You might have just fixed that for a lot of people who are cringing at those prayers. And we could end the video right there.